Ja, sehr verehrte Damen und Herren, ich freue mich, dass ich den Armando vorstellen darf. Er kommt aus Parma, arbeitet für die Universität Parma und auch für Biomark, ein amerikanischer Hersteller für die ganze Technologie HDX, FDX Antennensysteme. Er ist ein sehr, sehr versierter Fischbiologe mit einem sehr großen Erfahrungsschatz, gerade was das Besendern der Tiere angeht und den Umgang der Tiere. Und ich freue mich, dass er hier ist und einen Vortrag hält. Und draußen ist ja auch noch ein Tisch mit Anschauungsmaterial, also zögern Sie nicht, ihn zu fragen. Er ist wirklich ein anerkannter Experte für das ganze Thema und das ist vielleicht für den einen oder anderen auch noch interessant. Und wie schon gesagt wurde, Sie können auch gerne dann sich an mich wenden und ich kann jedenfalls versuchen zu übersetzen.
Daniel, thank you. Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak during this conference. So I will talk about bit tags. I don't know, is anyone already working with tags, bit tags, passive integrated transponder, antennas? So I'll start from the very basic, okay, about this technology. This technology started during the 1970s, okay. It was actually an Anglo-Italian, the first one to create a passive radio transponder with memory. So a chip that sends a signal, and in that signal there is a code that you can read. Of course, the first application was with cattle and horse and so on. Only in 1980, they had the first idea to okay, why don't we tag fish? And we use tag fish to study their behavior. So you see, it's already more than 30 years that people are tagging actually fish. And in 1984, they realized a chip is small enough to tag the first salmon. Keep in mind that most of the technology developed actually in the Western United States. They have a lot of dams. So BitTags was an extremely useful tool to monitor mortality to the fish pass and the efficiency of the fish pass. So, well, here you can have, there are many information that you can get when you start tagging fish, from fish behavior, fish efficiency, feeding habitat, genetics. So there are many options by the time you start tagging fish. You can really get a lot of information. So PIT tags means passive integrated transponder. Passive means that there is no battery, so they're different from the active tags. Okay, so basically once the fish is tagged, the tag will stay for its lifetime since there is no battery. So first question is, how can the tag send the signal? Where is the power comes from? Actually, you know, the chip gets the power from the antenna. I don't know if you have seen outside, there is a big, strange, rectangular thing that is a big antenna. So actually the tags absorb the energy from the antenna. So basically the antenna creates an electromagnetic field. Okay? So you can see when I have a copper coil with current going through, that creates an electromagnetic field. So you see this is iron dust, so that allows you to visualize the electromagnetic field. This electromagnetic field is, okay, so you see inside any reader or antenna, you see there is a copper coil. So keep this in mind, okay? So basically a big antenna like this is nothing else than a huge copper coil to create quite a strong electromagnetic field. The electromagnetic field actually is a physical process called induction. Induce an electron movement in the coil, as you can see in the picture. This movement of electrons is actually what is making the energy for the chip to send the signal. So anytime you think about bit tags, you have to think about a combination of antenna to create the electromagnetic field, the tag itself, this induction physical process that charge the tag and then the tag send the signal. Okay, so when you are thinking about the PID tag system, you always have to think about a combination of tags, reader, antennas. Okay, so just to say that if one of the component doesn't work very well, the system doesn't work. Okay. Okay, quite interesting. The ISO standard for PID tags for animal identification. You see, this is a frequency, 134.2 kilohertz, is the ISO standard frequency for animal identification. So we said that the tag is sending a radio signal, so that is the frequency that the tag is sending. And okay, we have two standards about sending this signal. One is called half duplex and one is called full duplex. This is quite important because you can have system designed for half duplex tags, so tags that send the signal with this standard, or you can have system designed for full duplex tags. Okay? So what is the main difference between the two different kind of tags? In the half duplex, there is a small capacitor inside the tag. Okay? So that means that the antenna is charging the capacitor, then when the capacitor is charged, the tag sends the signal. In the full duplex, you see, there is no capacitor, so the tag is sending the signal all the time, continuously. Half duplex means that the tag is sending the signal half of the time, because half of the time is used to charge the capacitor. Okay? And there is another, oops, sorry. Oh. No. No. Okay. So the other, so you can see the main difference is half duplex is on half of the time, the full duplex is all the time is sending the signal. The other difference is that since there is this capacitor, okay, the half duplex cannot be smaller than 12 millimeter in length. Okay. With the full duplex, you can go down to 8 millimeter in length. So that means that you can tag really tiny fish. Okay, so you can tag fish like 4 centimeters with no problem. Now, okay, so just to give you an idea between also the difference between half and full duplex. So the half duplex is more like a walkie-talkie. So, you know, when you are talking with the walkie-talkie, there is a time when I talk and the other person is listening, and then is vice versa. In the full duplex, it's more like our mobile phone. We can talk both at the same time because there is no time, there is no less time loss for the charging the capacitor. Oh, oops, okay, I have to use this. Okay, very important, when you have two tags at the same time, so two tagged fish at the same time, inside the electromagnetic field, both tags will send the signal, but your reader, your antenna, will not record the two tags. The reason is like when two people are talking to you, you cannot really recognize who is talking. So that is called tag collision. That's a kind of limitation in the system. And I just want to show one short video. When you are making an antenna system, an antenna installed. Let's wait if this is working. You always want to try to avoid to create fish habitat, okay? Or not all the time, but sometimes. Okay, let's see if it works. I think I need your help again. Okay, so this is, the white one is the antenna. So you see, in this case, we created a good habitat for trout. So if you have a situation like this, and if you have a target fish that loves to stay over the antenna all the time, the antenna is basically recording just this fish all the time. So it's preventing to record other fish. Okay, so I will show you some pictures later. When you go for an antenna install, it's very important to not to create fish habitat, because otherwise you will detect all the time the same fish. Okay, just quickly we go back to the presentation now. So in the US, the most common tags used is the 12 millimeter, see, 12 by 2 millimeter, and that allows you to tag fish down to 60 millimeter in fork length, so quite a tiny fish, of course, in the body cavity, okay? There are other options, other positions, but for small fish, body cavity is actually the only option available. Okay, these are just a picture of an antenna. We will come back later to this. Okay, the other difference when we are discussing about antenna for full duplex and half duplex, you see that the full duplex needs between the coil. Remember I was mentioning the copper coil. You must have an air gap between the copper coil and the water. Okay, this allows the electromagnetic field to develop. In the half duplex, there is no need for this air gap, and you can just use a very simple wire, okay, to create the electromagnetic field. Of course, this allows you to have a system for long-term monitoring, since the system is anchored to the ground. Okay, so this is more for kind of temporary monitoring, because usually it doesn't stand during high flow event. Okay, last thing regarding tags. The other standard, apart from the frequency, is this organization called ICAR. Okay, so tags can be ISO standard for the frequency, but also it's very important to be ICAR approved. What does this mean? ICAR is the company in charge of avoiding to have two tags with the same code. What is the reason for this? Okay, think that ICAR is mainly involved in animal identification, so including cattle, sheep, and so on. So for a traceability reason, you cannot have two tags with the same PIN tag code. Otherwise, you go to the market and you say, hey, but this beef is coming from Australia or is coming from UK. So all the companies that are manufacturing the PIN tags, they just go to ICAR and they say, hey, I want to buy 1 million code, okay? And no one else will use that million code to manufacture other tags. This is also very interesting also for fish, because sometimes something that is happening quite commonly with Atlantic salmon, maybe a fish tag in the UK is then detected in maybe Norway. Okay, so being sure that this unique code is very helpful. Okay, otherwise if you have fish with the same code, then it can be a little bit of a mess. Okay, this is very easy information. You know, the tag send the signal in hexadecimal, so it's a combination of letters and numbers, or decimal, only numbers, so it's just the way the signal is sent. Okay. Just a few information regarding the Columbia River Basin, where most of the technology was actually developed. So we are actually in the western part of the US. It's a huge water basin. So you see all the dams that are spread through the basin. Just a few numbers. In 25 years, they tag 33 million fish, and they recorded 150 million detection. All this information were actually used to monitor, let's say, the mortality between two dams. Say, hey, why we are losing 10% of our fish between the two dams, and try to find a solution. So it has been a huge effort for trying to restore salmon run, steelhead run, and to use the PTEX as a tool for this. And they even have this PTEG is like a national database where all the tag fish are in this database, so everybody can access the database and draw information about the tagged fish. They also have a nice program for the general public. So if someone is catching a fish, you know that all the salmon release, they do the fin clipping, okay? So if you catch a fish with no adipose fin, it means that comes from the hatchery. So most probably it's a tagged fish. So then you can take your tag, go to the wildlife office, and then they will read the tag, and they will print for you like a paper telling you the history of the fish. You know, that was tagged 3 years before, spent 2 years in the ocean, and then came back. So it's a way they like to involve people in this kind of study. Okay, so I go back. Oops. I don't know if you have any question, maybe Daniel, you can help, or if not, okay, let's continue.
Ja, recht herzlichen Dank.
Okay, so now I have the second presentation.
Ach,
This was the first one, yeah, so I'm sorry. you have to be patient. About how much?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, perfect, perfect. Okay. This is just, I will go a little bit faster now. Okay, so one problem with tags, you know, we said that they send the signal in 134.2 kilohertz as the carrying frequency for sending the signal. If I have in my environment any other source, okay, of device like power line, electrical motor that produce a similar frequency, they can interfere with the signal sent by the tags. That is called electromagnetic interference, or EMI. So if this is the signal from my tag, and this is the noise, the environmental noise, they can go together, and the antenna cannot really record properly the data. So this means that, you see, the read distance, that's very important, is limited. Okay, so if maybe the normal distance is maybe a meter, if there is a lot of noise in the environment, the read distance between the antenna and the tag can be like 40 centimeters. Okay, so these are very noisy stuff. Okay, so a good option is, before planning an antenna system, to go for a monitoring of the electromagnetic interference you have on site. So this is just the pictures from a recent install in Uhlstädt. Here we are close to Linz on the Danube. They built a long fish, natural fishway. So here we were testing. This is what we call a test antenna that helps us to understand the noise. Okay. Keep in mind that we were very close to hydropower station. So you see here we are 50% of noise, so it's a very noisy site. And here we have, you see all these peaks, okay? These are the turbines, the rotation that you reflect and you see this. Okay? So this is very, very important to do this kind of site visit before planning an antenna system. Now I just want to, okay, this is the big antenna. Okay, different kind of antenna, so you can have an idea. There are really a lot of different antennas that you can build and use. Keep in mind that all these antennas are for full duplex tags, okay? The company, Biomark, in this case, they only work for full duplex. So we can have, this is what we call pass-through, so the fish have to swim through the system. When you see two antennas like this, really close by, is because you want to know the direction of the migration. One antenna only tells you the fish is there, but you don't know if the fish is going upstream or downstream. So if you want to know the direction of the migration, you have to use two antennas. These two antennas, they run under the same clock. So by checking the difference in time of the detection, you exactly know if the fish is going upstream or downstream. In this particular case, upstream here, they built a new fish pass. So they wanted to know if the fish were going upstream, maybe not finding the entrance and going back. These are other kinds of antennas. This is an antenna in fiberglass. When if you have a lot of rocks that can break it, so it's inside a fiberglass case. A quite interesting floating antenna, for shallow river. That's also a good, interesting option. Or floating antenna that you can use on, a kayak. So you just go downstream the river and you detect the fish. Well, these are circular antenna. These are antenna quite now common to have in here in Northern Europe, in the Daniel fish pass for salmon. So you see the antenna actually replace one of the baffle of the Daniel. So the fish swim through and they are detected. So this is another quite interesting option. Antenna for fish pass. These are low profile antennas, so not to change the hydraulic of the fish pass. Oops. Okay, this I think can be something interesting. This is a submersible antenna with, okay, you see the size. What you have here inside is the battery pack. Then the battery is for about 3 weeks. Now it's very commonly, so you just throw the antenna in the river and you pick it up after 3 weeks. And it's very common now to use it for sturgeon monitoring. And what they do, see, they started to bait the antenna, okay? See, there is a canister. These are salmon eggs, because in the Western Pacific, the sturgeon are used to eat salmon eggs. So they use a sturgeon pellet, and see, this is the baited antenna, just so that the sturgeon can smell it and get close to the antenna, so they are detected. In a large river, it works very well, apparently. So I don't know if even in Europe no one is using, so can be an option for sturgeon monitoring in quite a large, deep river. Just a few case studies, let's say. This is from Italy. This is a coastal lagoon for eel monitoring. We are in Tuscany. This is the lagoon. There is one antenna here, one antenna here. There's about 3 kilometers between the two sites. And this was during the tagging. Okay, the eels were tagging the body cavity. And we use a very simple system, just 2 batteries and the reader, and you see this small antenna. What we realize is that, okay, this is one of the entrances of the lagoon, the other antenna is at the exit of the lagoon. We realized that by the time the antenna was in place, algae started to grow around and so on, so they created habitat. And very interesting, we found that eels were really attracted by the habitat created by the antenna. We were not thinking about this, but it really worked. And so, for example, we had a few eels. We tagged 254 eels, and few of them were detected in both stations. Okay, and we even have one that was detected here, then detected here, and then detected again here. Very interesting, most of the eels detected were silver eels or silvering eels, because probably they were trying a way to escape from the lagoon. So the idea is now to use that when we see detection increasing, is probably the time when the silver eels are starting to leave the lagoon. But very interesting was that for the daily movement, we realized that few eels, they love to stay close to the antenna. So they were continuously detected from 6 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon, disappearing during the night and appearing again daytime. So they were probably using the antenna as a kind of resting place. This is another example. This is from Norway. This is for smolt and adult salmon migration. This was quite a large install, just to give you an idea. These are the antennas, and we use an excavator to make a trench for the antennas, and then the antenna were fixed to the ground. And this is part of a 10 years monitoring project in Norway in many rivers. Okay, again, you see, trying not to create any fish habitat, of course. And okay, this is the electronics for the system, and it was very, very cold. That's for sure. Believe me. Okay, let's go a little bit closer to Germany. Here we are in Switzerland, the Lake of Neuchâtel. This is another system for monitoring the lake trout. Even here, a few interesting results. Okay, this is the hydropower station. The fish pass was actually built something like a year ago. Okay, so they wanted to use PTAGs to monitor the fish migration. So there is one antenna in the vertical slot and the other antenna in the bottom orifice. This was supposed mainly for bullhead, okay? And then they also, okay, this is the system with flowing water. But, okay, this is the main dam here. There is also a side channel, okay, that the fish can use to go upstream. And this is a small tributary, you see here, because historically it was well known for spawning habitat, okay? So they wanted to have one antenna here to say, hey, we want to see if our fish, they keep spawning here, also if we detect them here, or if they go upstream. Okay, so this is on the picture. So, sorry, very interesting was that after installing the fish pass, this small creek was no more in use. They didn't detect any fish. So by the time they opened they give the fish the possibility to go upstream, it looks like they completely forgot about this. And they tagged last year 600 fish, and they already detected like 250 this year going upstream. Last one is, this is from Spain. This is for a live project. It's called Cyprian Live Project. So this was mainly related to these endemic cyprinid in Spain. This was during some bee tagging training. So we were tagged barbel, brown trout, and the monitoring was for this natural fish ramp, okay? And in this case, you see the antenna was placed under this grid, okay? So the fish going through the fishway had to go over the antenna. And again, this is okay, the system that they built a small cabin with the solar power to power the antenna. Very interesting. You see, there were two stations, 9 kilometers between the two stations, and they had fish that managed to run between the two stations, so the 9 kilometers in less than 10 days. So they were really, really surprised to see fish like 35 centimeters to go in such a short time to go through to run this distance. Okay, this is just to last information. Of course, now you have the option to have everything. Your system can be remotely connected. So by your office, you can actually download all your information. Okay, so
perfect.
That's it. 30 minutes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation.
Okay.
So, Fragen, bitteschön.
Ich würde eine kurze Zusammenfassung machen.
Kurze Zusammenfassung.
Ich würde noch mal ganz kurz so die wesentlichen Punkte zusammenfassen. Ich habe auch einen Spickzettel mir aufgeschrieben. Ja. Also das Wichtigste, was Armando vorgestellt hat, ist im Prinzip, dass Transponder genutzt werden können, um Fische zu markieren. Das ist eine relativ bewährte Technik aus der Nutzung. Das System funktioniert mit einem elektromagnetischen Feld. Das ist eine passive Detektion, das heißt also der Sender, also mit dem der Fisch markiert wird, emittiert kein Signal, sondern das Signal entsteht dadurch, dass der Fisch durch das elektromagnetische Feld der Antenne schwimmt und dadurch dann dazu animiert wird, das Signal zu emittieren. Man unterscheidet zwei unterschiedliche Systeme, HDX, also Half-Duplex und Full-Duplex. Die unterscheiden sich einfach darin, dass das Half-Duplex im Prinzip entweder sendet oder liest, also so, ich erkläre es jetzt mal ein bisschen einfacher, so wie ich es immer verstehe, während das Full-Duplex quasi permanent sendet und permanent liest. Und das hat den entscheidenden Vorteil. Beim Full-Duplex bin ich in der Lage, auch mehrere markierte Fische, die gleichzeitig die Antenne zu passieren, zu detektieren, während es auch Nachweise gibt, dass das beim Half-Duplex aussteigt. Also das heißt, wenn zwei markierte Fische oder mehr durchschwimmen, verliere ich Informationen. Ich brauche immer eine Antenne, die im Prinzip aus einem Kupferkabel besteht, in der einfachsten Form. Bei einer Full-Duplex-Antenne brauche ich immer noch ein Luftfeld quasi um die Antenne, wenn sie im Wasser liegt. Deshalb sind es diese großen Ummantelungen gewesen, die man gesehen hat. Und die Reichweite ist beim Half-Duplex etwas höher, aber wie gesagt, auf Kosten, sobald wir einen Schwarmaufstieg haben oder mehrere Tiere kommen, steigt das ganze System aus. Entscheidend für die Reichweite ist die elektromagnetische Hintergrundstrahlung an dem jeweiligen Standort. Das heißt also, wenn ich jetzt an einem Wasserkraftwerk bin, muss ich mir sehr genau überlegen, wie kann ich die Antenne bestmöglich platzieren, sodass diese Hintergrundstrahlung, die sich auf die Reichweite auswirkt, möglichst gering ist. Und ich untersuche den Standort vorher und versuche das zu optimieren. Was hatte ich jetzt noch auf dem Zettel? Genau, wenn ich eine Richtung feststellen will, also eine alleinige Antennenpassage, habe ich keine Richtung, sondern ich weiß nur, der Fisch war an der Antenne. Wenn ich eine Richtung feststellen will, brauche ich mindestens 2 Antennen und kann dann anhand von den zeitlichen Detektionen dann auch sagen, in welche Richtung der Fisch geschwommen ist. Die ganzen Beispiele kann ich jetzt nicht drauf eingehen. Ich kann nur sagen, wir haben uns das auch mal in Österreich angeguckt, ein Kollege und ich, wo sie so eine Antenne, die jetzt unten links im Bild zu sehen ist, eingebaut haben. Das ist schon sehr beeindruckend. Das wird also mit richtig massiven Erdankern in den Gewässergrund eingebracht. Das ist ein sehr, sehr stabiles System. Und man hat vor allen Dingen, da sehe ich einen großen Vorteil drin, keine Probleme mit Treibgut oder auch wenn Geschiebe dort rüber geht. Und das ist auch so, dass die Antennen sich, das hat er jetzt noch gar nicht gesagt, also die Antennen tunen sich auch selber. Das heißt also, die stellen sich selber nach. Wenn der Wasserspiegel sich ändert, dann ändert sich auch die Einstellung der Antennen. Und das, was er am Schluss noch vorgestellt hat, man hat die Möglichkeit, die ganzen Daten im Prinzip über eine Internetverbindung abzufragen. Und ich habe dort vor allen Dingen dann noch immer die Information, wie ist der Zustand meiner Antenne. Weil das Problem ist natürlich, wenn ich jetzt keine Detektionen habe, kann entweder meine Antenne nicht funktionieren oder es sind keine Fische da. Und das ist natürlich wichtig zu unterscheiden. Und das ist, sage ich mal, so der Vorteil von diesen Dingen, die da jetzt sind. Es gibt ja noch einen ganzen Haufen andere Gimmicks, sage ich mal, diese Wurfantenne, die er vorgestellt hat, die man dann einfach in einem tieferen Pool platzieren kann und mit der man dann auch entsprechende Untersuchungen machen kann. Dabei soll es mal lassen.
Ja, also ich glaube, das war schon sehr, sehr interessant. Vor allem faszinierend, man kann 4 cm große Fische mit einem individuellen Transponder versehen. Das ist faszinierend, diese Technologie.
Ja, also das ist wirklich so, das muss man auch noch sehen, das war ja immer so ein bisschen so die Krux an der Technik, dass die Fischgröße so ein bisschen limitierend war. Das ist inzwischen also nicht mehr der Fall. Wir haben auch gemeinsam mal einen Workshop gemacht, wo man das alles auch mal praktisch ausprobieren konnte. Also inzwischen ist man wirklich in der Lage, auch mit diesen Injektoren, die man verwendet, sehr, sehr kleine Fische zu markieren, ohne dass die Fische dort verletzt werden. Was wichtig ist bei den kleinen Fischen, ist der Platz für den Sender immer die Bauchhöhle. Und ansonsten muss man auch gucken, das differiert so ein bisschen von Fischer zu Fischer. Das hat er jetzt nicht so im Detail dargestellt, aber